that aspect, and then we need to see how to go about it. Now, in doing that, I'll be talking about now. There are two dimensions to modeling, um, um, to to modeling paper or a modeling project that you want to turn to publication. Now, there is a dimension that calls for the quantitative, which has to do with answering a meaningful public health question, and then confronting, focusing on that. You need to look at what are the important questions you want to answer from the public health point of view, or public health relevant question, and then um, some of the things that may interest, if it is an epidemic, may be estimation of your reproduction number or other epidemiological thresholds. And then their interest is also focused on, maybe especially during an epidemic, now spreading the qualitative nature of disease spread, like spreading speed, when peak is attained, what time peak will be attained, and then when epidemic will die out. They want to know this thing. So this thing we are seeing growing over time, when will it die out? And they need to know they want to know the timing. And then, do we have multiple waves phenomenon? Like if you have two peaks, different peaks, maybe within a particular month or something, you want to check like something like that. And then they also want to look at estimation of disease burden, like prevalence, incidence, mortality, and then disease, that's a case fatality rate. And then they want to know expected number of infection and disease induced deaths. They also want to know expected number of hospitalization, how many people will be hospitalized, and then evaluation of control strategies like herd immunity, cost of interventions, optimal allocation of limited resources. Now, these are some of the things I've discussed before. The question around how severe would the epidemic be, the severity can be in two different ways: either total number of affected people who may require medical care, or maximum number of infected people at any given time. They want to know the total number of affected people who may need medical care, and then the maximum number of affected people at any given time. So how long will it last? Is it going to be forever? Has it come to remain persistent, or is something that will come and go? Now and then, when will it peak? What will be its time course? Duration. Is it going to be 1 year, 2 years? How effective will quarantine or vaccination be? If it's a new disease, if it's a new epidemic, the challenge will be that maybe there are no vaccine available. So like COVID, when COVID came, there were no vaccine, there were no treatment, so they needed to go on non-pharmaceutical interventions. What quantity of vaccine or antiviral drugs should be stockpiled? What are the effective measures to contain, control, eradicate an endemic disease? We need to look at that. Partial answers may be obtained using variety of approaches. So mathematical model has proven to tool in assisting an important tool in assisting public health authorities to make informed decisions. This brings us to the obvious question: what is mathematical model of infection useful? And then we have done that. We have answered some of this question. Infectious disease often affect a large population of individuals over a large geographic area. Experiments conducted in laboratories are often inadequate simply because of the huge difference in scale. For infectious disease in human, large-scale experiment may be impossible or unethical. And then existing data sets about the disease may not be complete or accurate enough for the statistical analysis to be available. For instance, there will be little or no disease surveillance data available on infected people who are asymptomatic. So you'll find out that I mean the data sets, there are underlying things that we need to do modeling, especially when it comes to quantitative approach. Now, in modeling also, somebody may also want to go through the route of being, just theoretical, mathematical wish list. Now, this aspect has to do with people in mathematics, what's their interest? So now their interest focuses on describing qualitative dynamics of the model, existence and asymptomatic stability of solution, types of solution, equilibria, periodic, and then stability. Under stability, you have local and global, condition of persistence and elimination of disease. And these are some of the theoretical. So their goal primarily is to develop new mathematical theories and techniques for handling large systems of differential equations. Now, steps in a modeling project. Now, number one is development of the study concept and question. Like I said initially, you need to, the idea, the concept has to do with the idea. When the idea comes, what questions come to your mind? So this may be two different platforms, research question or public health relevant question. So we need to know whether you are looking at it from that point of view. And then literature review. Now, if any idea comes to my mind, maybe so like it can come through different routes. Now, an idea can come maybe when you are reading a paper. It can also come when maybe naturally you may not even be reading a paper and an idea flush into your heart. You can pen it down and then go back and check literatures to confirm whether the idea that is coming to your mind has been done or not. And if it has been done, in what way has it been done? Has it been done in the pattern you are thinking about, or it has been done in another pattern? So you'll be able to know, check this and confirm this when you check literature. So a good researcher must develop an attitude of reading literatures, reading periodics, literatures, and publications. These are platforms where you update yourself and also know what is being done in your area. Now, you also need to think about what are the data that are available. Do we have data? Before you start modeling, you have to look at available data because the data will inform your model. If you don't have data, it means that you may be going through the route of theoretical model. But if you want to work to really guide, to do something that will inform policy, inform decision making, and help in policy making, you will need to go through the route of data collection. Now, data collection may be yesterday, like I said, maybe primary data or secondary data, and it's also divided into four. You can have maybe if you want to collect fresh data, it could be through survey or cross-sectional studies where you collect data at an instant of time now, and it could also be over some period, maybe in patches. And then you can also look at retrospective data where you look at what has happened in the past, like a time series data. So, and then you are looking at what has happened in the past and you want to use it to judge what will happen in the future. So another aspect is prospective data where you put people in a cohort and you are trying to study a particular risk factor, maybe like smoking. Now, if people are smoking for a long period of time, what will happen to them, maybe in terms of checking lung cancer and all that? So, and then the last one is clinical trials. where you are checking for the effectiveness of a drug. So if you have placebo and you have those ones that you didn't, you have injected the drug into them, you have some animal model, and then you collect primary data through that to check how effective the drug will be if it's eventually been disbursed or given to human being or deployed. So how effective will it be? And then what are the side effects? Then if people take it, will they die? What are other things that can happen if people take it and all that? So those are things you have to check so that you don't go and put up a drug that will destroy or kill a large number of population. So now you will see that here, before you construct your model, we are talking about data collection, because your model you are supposed to have look at your model, your data well, to be able to give you a pathway into the model you want to develop. And then you look at model analysis and selection. So, and then now model analysis and selection involve also doing carrying out analysis, involve carrying out fitting, model parameter estimation and all that. And selection may be, I mean, it actually has to do with using Akaike information criteria. If you see have time, I may teach you on model selection. Now, where you have more than one model and you are trying to check which one best fits the data you have, that may also be another route. And then you are also doing some simulation around the model. But before you use the model to carry out scenario analysis or prediction, it will be good you do some validation. There are two kinds of validation. The first one may be performance metrics that help you check the accuracy of the model. And then the other one has to do with cross validation, where you do add some sample data and then you use it to fit your model to fit this data that are not part of the data you used earlier. And then manuscript writing and submission. Now, manuscript writing and submission is a function of certain variables. In terms of you have written a particular work on a particular disease, you have to know what is not every journal that may publish what you have done. You have to go and check. Now, this particular journal, what do they publish? What's their aim? What is their focus? So that you don't go and throw your paper where they don't need it. Recently, we were trying to publish a paper, and then we sent it to a particular journal, and they said no, that they don't have expertise of who can actually look at the work. So we have to throw it to another journal again. So we have to understand that it's not every journal that can publish your manuscript. So, and then in the course of writing, you have to learn to write well. Writing is a continuous thing. Now, while you are writing, you have keep updating your literatures. While you are writing, have in mind your research questions that you developed before. Now, if you have two questions, you should be able to check your results. It must also be in correspondence to the two questions you have developed. Question 1 should be answered in the results. Question 2 should be answered in the results. So the same thing with objective 1 and 2, which will be answered by the methodology. So the response from the methodology based on the questions and the objectives will be given out by the output or the result of the work. And then you also look at the aspect of discussion, where you compare your results with existing work. How did they tally? Are there comparison? Can you compare them? Are there any similarity, or they are saying different things? So types of modeling studies. Now, when you don't have data, without data collection, you can carry out purely theoretical studies, like the one I showed us before. where you have the mathematical wish list, the interest of mathematicians in modeling. Now you find out that um, you are just trying to respond to a theoretical question where the goal primarily is to build new mathematical techniques, and then you are using that mathematics to respond to the question. And then number two is parameterization based on published studies. So if you don't have data, you can get your parameter values based on published studies. Like you go to like something like PubMed, where you carry out what we call systematic reviews. That means you systematically bring out publications in that area and meta-analysis. You extract parameters that you need, and then from there they are useful in your model to be able to perform um, numerical experiments, simulation, and all that. And then you can also look at parameterization based on published studies like experimental and field studies. There are certain parameters that they are based on experiment and field studies. So you will get them. Parameters like infectious period, parameters like latent period, incubation period, immune period. All of those are parameters that are based on experiments and field studies. So you are going to get them from published works. So when you don't have data, now one of the things, so how do you go about that? So you still go through the first route. When you don't have data, you do development of the concept. That's why any project you want to do, you should put your concept note together like a short proposal that carries your questions, your aim, the direction of the work, and all of that together. And then your timeline. So it guides your project from the word go. And then you have literature review. Literature review. Literature review is meant to confirm your development of your study concept and research question, and you have to confirm what you are thinking about given the literatures. So it will open more gaps for you to know what has been done in various geographical locations and from different persons. And then for data collection, it could be primary or secondary data. But in this case now, there's no data collection. You can see that I just make it so dark. It's just light because I don't have data. So without data collection, that's why it's light. So from literature review, after discovering the gap, you look at construction of model framework. So maybe you are using dynamic equations and code. You develop your dynamical systems using a flow diagram and a description of the model equations, and then you code maybe using R or Python. Now, relationship between parameters. So in the course of developing your model, you are seeing how each of the parameters are playing together, influencing one another and influencing the dynamical system. Number five is model analysis and selection. Now we have talked about that initially, where you carry out a qualitative analysis, not quantitative now, on the model, where you are looking for existence and uniqueness, and you are looking for boundedness or positivity or solution. And then you look at yes, so model invariant region and all that. Those are actually fundamentals. They are not your results, but they are things that you must do before you now come out with your own result based on your question. And then number six is model validation. For this, because there is no data, you may not be able to carry out the validation. especially like in a way where you have a cross validation, I mean. But maybe you could still do performance metrics. And then now, sorry, under model analysis and selection, you also have model selection, like I said the other time, where you have model selection. You are selecting the best model using Akaike or BIC, Bayesian information criterion, and then you parameterize, you model fitting. So that means in the course of fitting a model, you are trying to conform your model with the data. You want to match them, and at the same time you want to optimize to get some parameter value estimated. Now you also carry out simulation and debugging. So you simulate model analysis and selection, you simulate. So when you simulate, you use numerical simulations, and then through that you are able to also vary certain parameters. You vary some parameters. So, and then under that you can do like what we have under model validation, sensitivity analysis. So this play on the parameters in the model. So under that you have local, sensitivity analysis, and global. So local means within certain number of parameter values. But when you say global, you are dealing with on a large space, on a large range of parameter values. And then, so the first one is on R plus, and the other one is on Rn. So where you do the sensitivity analysis, and then you can also do one-way, two-way sensitivity analysis, where you vary certain parameters. One way is that you can pick a parameter in the model and change the parameter values, and see how it changes the dynamical systems, how it influences it, the pattern of the dynamical system. So manuscript writing and submission. So at the end of the day, you also have to know which journal can publish my theoretical studies. So mainly, most times they are basically mathematical model journal. So where you publish this kind of paper, because it's theoretical. Okay, so we also have in a case where if you are going to have data collection, that means you are carrying out a modeling project with data. So data already collected for other purposes, focus only on analysis. Maybe you are using a secondary data, so you do a quantitative analysis. So you need to understand the data limitations and quality. So how do you do that? You have to know what is the content of this data, what are the stratification, what are the variables in the data, what are the entities in the data. You have to check. So to be able to see how your data will be relevant to your model. Okay, and then you need to understand your data limitations. So do you have missing data? Do you have outliers? And data quality, the kind of data you have. Like take for instance, you are looking at malaria cases. Now malaria cases data may be limited, because that is just showing us the number of people that are infected, the number of new cases. It may not give us the underlying issue as far as transmission is concerned. So you find out that this kind of data is limited. it may not also give us certain information about maybe the intervention and all that. And then you need to adapt modeling to the available data. So we need to look at how can we fit model to data, and then data collected for the modeling projects, very time consuming. Now if you are collecting the data for a particular modeling project, it's time consuming. Modeling is generally more straightforward. So now for this type of data, you want to have data collection. If you are, so you have from development of the study concept to literature review to data collection. This is a more or less sorry. So you have construction of model framework. So it's either you are using statistical model or mathematical dynamical model. And then sorry please. So you are using a dynamical model or a statistical model. Like we said yesterday, statistical model help us to study patterns. They also test for correlation, regression, and then they can forecast, nowcasting, forecasting. They can also be used to measure the impact of effectiveness of a drug or a vaccine. And then for mathematical model, it can help us to, for mathematical model, we have deterministic and stochastic. And then under deterministic, we have different all the ordinary differential equation, which is the one we are most of us have been used with most of the time. We also have other ones like partial differential equation and delayed differential. We have integral differential equation or integral difference equation, and all the like. And then we have um, meta population models. We have network models. We have agent based model that deals with each individuals in the population. So it end up with an exponential growth. Now, model better adapted to our data. So that means you must have understood the data, and it's something that you can adapt your model with, your model to. So your model is meant to be adapted to a given data. So model analysis and selection. So we have under model analysis, we have descriptive, we have descriptive, sorry, we have descriptive, we have um, descriptive under, that's under statistics. We have descriptive, multivariate, and then univariate. That's univariate has to do with one variable and two or more variable for multivariate. And then um, when you are modeling with data, it means that you go through the route of parameter estimation and simulation, and then you do model validation. Under that, that could be performance metrics, and then to measure the accuracy and also carry out cross validation. Comparison. So model comparison, you are trying to bring 2 or 3 models together and compare which one is better that fits this model, this data. Then sensitivity analysis, you want to perform um, which help us to perform a kind of test, so to say, on the model, so that we can which data, and so which of the parameter influence the dynamics of the model most. That is, changes over time as we vary the parameter. Then you go to manuscript writing and submission. Don't forget I said you have to know where you want to publish your work. You cannot just publish your work anywhere. So you have to get into who is inviting you. Sorry, you have to know, the submission. Sorry for that. You have to know um, the aim and the scope of that journal. The aim and the scope of the journal before you submit any paper into any journal of your choice. On that platform, you do what you do is you ask yourself, what is your question? What is your question? What question do you want to answer? And then, why is the question interesting? Why is it interesting? Is this something that you have a stakeholder that will be interested in your output? Or is it an hot question or an hot area? Um, is this something that is bothering the government that you have observed? Getting you to do the work. Why is it interesting? Why is it interesting? Why is it interesting? So, and then why? Who is interested? Who is interested? Do you have maybe like public health agencies, or maybe there is an NGO that at the end of the day you are going to put up a position paper to tell them your findings and can be useful for them? Can it be narrowed down to a question about specific quantitative relationship? So whether you are looking at the effects of something, maybe the effect of uh, insecticide treated nets on malaria transmission or prevalence or malaria incidence in Nigeria. So that may be one thing you want to look at. So you are trying to narrow it down to a question about specific quantitative relationships. Aim and objectives of the study. The aim of this work is to gain insight into the relationship between ecological factors, human diseases, and economic development through the case study of Plasmodium falciparum in Nigeria. Now, what do we want to do? That's the aim. The objectives are: we want to understand the effect of environmental factors on PF malaria ecology. Objective 2, we want to study the transmission of PF malaria from the aquatic environment to human. We want to understand the feedbacks between poverty and PF malaria. These are some of the things we can look at. But you see that in my aim, I'm not putting any questions that have to be, I'm sorry, anything that has to do with methodology. Some of you are writing an aim, you are saying to develop mathematical model. That's not an aim. That should be methodology. Then you have the literature review. So the question is your concepts that you are coming up with, your research question. What are you looking for? You are looking at who has tried to answer this before and how did they do it. So you need to check the question that is coming to your mind, the concept, the idea, who has done it before, and how did the person do it. Then, so under that, you look at empirical studies. So before you look at modeling studies in a literature, you look at empirical studies, studies from biologists, from clinicians, from epidemiologists, from veterinarian, from malariologists. Those are the ones you should first look at before you look at modeling studies. So what are these studies shortcomings? The study you are looking at, what are their shortcomings? You have to look at them. What are their lows and what are their highs? Now the question also is, are there already parameter estimates or data sets to help you answer your question? Do you have already parameter estimates to help you understand your question? So then you go to data. Do you want to describe the relationship between parameters or systems? Oh, níbo lẹ ti lost, níbo lẹ ti get mọ́? Side èwo, ṣé data collection?
Yeah, you help us with share the slide. Nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what do you need to character under data collection? There is what we call characterization. Now, there are two ways to this one. Now, if your data is focusing on a particular location, do you have information about that location in terms of maybe the cases of the disease you want to look at, or depending on what you are looking at that time? And then you also need to clear um, relationship between the parameters or system. How do we describe them? Relationship between parameters or systems under data collection. Construction of model framework. Now you need to look at it. What drawback of previous studies can I make? Now you have seen what people have done. You have found their lows and their highs. Now you need to create a gap in knowledge in that field. So the drawbacks you saw in the previous studies can be something you want to work on to be able to give us feedback on what we should do. Now, what type of modeling is necessary to answer my question? You can go from statistical, that's going from, I mentioned some yesterday, that start from univariate by multivariate, and then you go to generalized linear, and then like that. Some from linear model, basic linear model to other types of models. Then you also have spatial analysis. If you are looking at something like geospatial models, and then time series also, time series where you use time series to identify seasonal patterns. Now, mathematical model, we talked about population base, that is deterministic and stochastic, can be population base, and then individual base, which is agent based model. So you have the deterministics, where you take the population, what happened, you are looking at the point of view of average. You take mean of everything that happened on average in the population. That's deterministic. So, and then you are you are you are describing what happens on average in the population for deterministic models. And then um, for stochastic models, on the other hand, you allow the number of individuals who move between one compartment or the other to vary by chance. To vary by chance. So you allow randomness to play when it comes to stochastic. And the individual based model, you know that you pick each individual and as agents, and then you develop you put up a model like a feature for each of them, so which end up as a large system of model that cannot be handled by ordinary computer except you have an HPC, high performance computing. Now, what modeling elements are necessary for my question? So one of them is stochasticity. That is how people move from one compartment to another. Let's take, for instance, transmission rates. People can get contacts, and then there is transmission, and then they can move from susceptible to infected. The transmission rates can be subjected to stochastic noise, and stochasticity. And then you want to check, instead of saying it is deterministic, so you are saying it's stochastic, and there are uncertainty around this measurement. So compartment, it can be compartmental. So if it's compartmental, you know what that means. Where you put the population in different non-intersecting platform. And complexity, it becomes complex when it's going to be real. And then for a model that is going to be real, it's going to be complex, and it's going to be of high accuracy. Now, model analysis, selection, and validation. What model or models best fit my data and explain my question? So that's where we come into model selection, model comparison. So you build more than one model. Comparison of alternative models and application of selection procedures. I mentioned AIC and BIC. Akaike information criterion and Bayesian information criterion. They are means through which you carry out model selection or comparison, where you pick the model that best conform to the data you have. Does the selected model suffer from any substantial drawbacks? So you have to check. Now, how do you check? Statistical model, verification of model assumptions. You verify some of the model assumption using some statistical models, and then mathematical models also, by using maybe one way or two way sensitivity analysis, where you vary some of the parameter, or you do out of sample prediction. That's cross validation. So where you validate your model given the out of sample the data. So manuscript writing and submission. What are the main results that provide the answer to my question? So you provide like 1 to 3 graphs that responds to some of the question. Maybe you have 3 graphs for each of those questions, depending. But at least there must be one, if not two, at least one to help answer your question. And then, okay, maybe also 1 or 2 tables, 1 or 3 tables, 1 to 3 tables can also be of help in making people see the picture of your methodology, of your results. So what is the journal that best fits my study? You have to look at the scope, the audience, who are those people that read the journal, impact factor, math focus. Like one journal we sent our paper, the content of the paper looks a bit more of like mathematical statistics, something like that. So it's dealing with something that is infectious disease, but people that read that journal are mostly people in the public health that may not understand some of the things we wrote there. So we are advised to send to another journal. So you have to look at scope of the paper. Don't just throw your journal to anything. Don't just say because of promotion, let me also do something. It may not work that way. Make sure you check the journal that best fits your study. You check the scope, check the audience, check the impact factor, math focus, and all that. And then how do I present my manuscript? So apart from publishing your manuscript, another way to disseminate or make people know that you are doing a work is to present, maybe in a conference, workshop, and then you have the pathway here. Introduction, you set the stage to your question. So under introduction, you have your questions, your research question, your objective, your methodology, and then your literature review. Some of the what have people done. So methodology, describe explicitly all aspects, all steps for replicability. Clear and conscious. So let your result be clear and conscious. So and then discussion. Explain how your study improves previous knowledge. And then we have so your result must be clear and concise. Clear and concise. Like I said, if you have post question or objective, maybe you have two objectives, you should be able to give us your results. Your results should be like your answers to those objectives. So based on the methodology, what your methodology bring out for us, and then your methodology describe all steps for, so it was open for replicability so that somebody can repeat the same and do the work. So your discussion explain how your study improves the studies before your own. So those ones that have been done earlier, what's the relationship, or what has your study done that it did not do? So I want to acknowledge this person and thank you very much. Any question? Thank you. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful um, lecture and presentation. All right, are there people who have questions for Prof? Please, so let's signify by showing of hands. Then I can unmute you to speak. Okay. Um, sorry, that's Ahmad. Okay, Ahmad, a minute. I want you to ask your question. Ahmad, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Good
Mister.
afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, my question is, at what point can you perform a cross validation in mathematical models? Because I think it is obvious to be
Yes.
performed
So
in
so after
statistical model.
your what's it called? After your fitting, when you have done your fitting, you can carry out your cross validation. But there's one
Thank you, sir.
validation you should also do. You should do a validation that has to do with performance metrics of your model given the data. How does your model fit the data? How accurate are the method you use?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah. All right. Any other person? Any other person? If you have a question, signify. Okay. Oshifua Daniel. Okay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much for highlighting a lot of things to me and to us on this thing. I have a question, and my question has to do with you made mention of data collection, but there is a study in which I'm currently doing now that invariably it has to do with something like creating the mathematical equation that you use to model what the stuff we are working on. But in that case, is it that the procedure you wrote you mentioned with respect to the steps of modeling a project will, will is not going to work perfectly for this, because the way we are doing it is first, uh, we don't have the data yet, but we are just developing the mathematical model and equation. Then when the data comes, we now insert our data into the developed model. So I want to ask, is that a correct way of doing stuff, or maybe we've mixed things up here, sir?
Yes, that's where the problem is. You find out that people do that, and then you still come back, and by the time you are now doing the whole stuff, you come back and do it again, because most times the model you have built, that you don't know the data you want to use it to fit. You don't even know whether the data has outliers, missing data, and all of that. But you are just build model based on intuition, and real life is not based just on intuition. So your model eventually, by the time you are now having the data, your model, by the time you want to fit the data to model, you are having problem, because you have started where you are not supposed to start. Normally, if under normal circumstance, we are supposed to have our data with us, and then you are able to look at your data critically before. So your data should inform your model development, because if you understand your data very well, and you have carried out um, um, certain analysis, basic analysis on the data. In fact, you are not supposed to do any complex analysis on your data on until you have satisfied the basic analysis. You are not supposed to go do big work like data modeling issue, until you have done justification on your data. You know the pattern of the data, you know how the data is behaving, and all of that. So before you now say you want to develop a model, So it's a wrong path, because at the end of the day, by the time the data come, you see that they are not conforming. So you have to begin again. So, and then, so you'll have wasted time doing the other one. So why not? I feel the best way is that you go for your data collection, either primary or secondary, and then you start working on the data first to be able to understand the data correctly, and then it guides you on the kind of model you should use. Thank you. Except you want to do a theoretical work that does not have any data, you just do it, and just like some of the things I said on theoretical model, you just do the theoretical model and then you are fine. Over.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Okay. Any other person?
There
Okay.
is one Ahmad here. There is Jolly Patience.
All right, Mr. Okay, you have the floor, Mr. Ahmad.
Okay, sir. So once again, sir, if someone has a weekly data set, which contain a column of number of cases of a disease, now, and he's trying to perform a mathematical modeling, how will he set his initial variable like infected person?
Okay. Yes. Now, you have to look at your data well. Now, if he's having, let's take for instance, you're having weekly cases of cholera. Okay. So you have to like find your compartments, your infected compartment, and then look at, now in case of that, you are looking at number of new cases. So in your model, you have to carve out another when you want to, this one should not be part of your model. This should be in the coding, because that's what you are going to use to fit. Now you carve out a part in that model that you have built. Maybe it's a 6 compartment model. You have to carve out a part of your model that represent the incidence that you have in your data, right? So you carve out an equation for that. That is the one you are going to use to fit your data.
Okay.
So if your data is prevalence, you know what prevalence is? Prevalence is number of both old and new cases. So you carve out an equation for that in your model, and then use it to capture your data.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah.
Jolly Patience.
I will try
Jolly
to
Patience. Are you on mute?
I think she's not on the call again.
She has got frozen. Now, okay, there's a question on this platform. Sir, please throw more light on objectives. The objectives will always guide you to develop your methodology. Yes, so the objective should be a response for the question. Let's take, for instance, you have a question like one of the ones I said here. You have a question on maybe you are working on malaria, and then there's a question on like what are the effects of environmental factors on Plasmodium falciparum malaria ecology. So that's the question. So the objective will now be maybe determine the effects. I want to determine the effects of environmental factors, like maybe like land use, like what's it called? Land use, like flooding, this kind of thing on malaria, So, and then so looking at the effect of that, and then so it will also be maybe I want to look at the what are the transmission pattern of PF malaria from the aquatic environment to human. So, and then I want to like maybe determine or understand the transmission of PF malaria from the aquatic environment to human. So that kind of thing, you will also have for each of those objective. For objective 1, you have methodology 1 that is addressing that particular objective. So and then for objective 2, you have methodology 2 that is addressing that particular objective. So at the end of the day, now the methodology 1 that you use in addressing objective 1 should give me a result or some sets of results. So it means that if I have that result for that objective 1 based on my methodology, then it will make me to answer my question, which I have posed earlier, going forward. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prof.
And then your question also, your results, at the end of your results, you should also discuss your limitations. The limitation of your study is also of interest to your audience or to the publishing organization. So, okay, you mentioned during your, someone is asking here, you mentioned during your lecture that aim cannot be to develop a model. A model question is okay, my question is, how are better ways of setting up our aim? Yes, okay, said, take for instance now, you are working in disease model like malaria, and then your question supposed not to come from mathematics. Your question should come from the biology, the epidemiology, the ecology of malaria. So now, if you look at the aim I have here, the aim of this work is to gain insight on the relationship between ecological factors, human disease, economic development through the case study of Plasmodium falciparum malaria in Nigeria. You will not see any mathematical model here. You didn't see machine learning here. But machine learning, mathematical model, they are methods that I'm going to use to be able to respond to that question. So the question should be biology, should based on the biology or epidemiology, ecology, or anything that has to do with the biology, epidemiology of malaria should be first of where that's where the question comes from. The question does not come from mathematics. The question comes from the biology of the disease. The aim also, like the aim you are talking about, comes from that, not from develop a model. No, when you write develop a model, you are already mixing methodology with what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, what do you now write as your methodology? When you have written that your aim is to model, and your model, don't forget that what inform your aim is the gap you have seen in literature. Now, if you write model, is your model going to be the newest model? Is still a compartmental model. So what is new about your work is the gap in knowledge you have discovered, which is the research question or the concept you want to study at that particular time. I think that is more of interest than any other thing you may be thinking about in study. Over. I don't know if I've answered your question. Kabir Dani. Right.
Thank you, Prof, for that wonderful response. Is there any other questions that is not taken before we run close the
Jolly
session?
Patience. Who is Jolly Patience?
Jolly.
Okay.
She's not on the call.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, sir. Prof, we have yeah, nothing there. Oh,
okay.
So I think
this person is raising up his hand again. Ahmad. Okay. Ahmad. Is it the old hand or the new hand?
Yes, sir.
Hello, okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry for disturbing, sir.
No problem.
Okay, sir. So also you in that same data set you are having a suspected column. Can you regard that suspected column as your asymptomatic? No, what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
no,
okay. The suspected
cases and the confirmed cases.
No. Suspected cases does not mean asymptomatic. Suspected cases are you have not confirmed them. Maybe they are showing symptoms. So you have not confirmed them. You need to isolate them to be able to test them and see whether they have that disease or not.
Okay.
So they are the suspected. You know, when they say somebody is a suspect, you know what it means? A suspect. Yes. So you have not confirmed, but you need to find out by testing that person to know whether that person has malaria or has another disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So asymptomatic data, you don't have them because you don't go to hospital when you are not sick.
Really.
So nobody has data on people who are asymptomatic. So that's where the problem is. For malaria, you have large number of people that are asymptomatic that you don't have their data, and they are the one making elimination of malaria to be difficult.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, I think there is another question here. I think we'll take this last one before we go for break. So, Prof, there's a question in the chat box. It's saying, when developing an agent-based model for antimicrobial resistance, how do you determine which biological process should be represented explicitly as agent-level behaviors, and which one can be simplified or represented at the population level?
Okay, yeah. So like, I think the best way to do this kind of work is to first do a very simple model, and then because like an agent-based model can be exponentially large, that you will need because you are capturing each individual as an agent in the model, and you have to now represent them with certain entities or features. So doing this, you have to start small. Maybe you start with a simple model, and then you can grow your model into a bigger individual based model. Maybe you start with a population based model, and then you can grow it, because like if I pick an individual now, and I say that maybe the individual is either infected or not infected. So I can have, like, take for instance, I can have S susceptible and have many highs. I1, I2, I3, I4, up to IN. For Nigeria, maybe up to I 200 million. And then that's, so what it means is that you will need an HPC to be able to pull that together. And then you assign each of those you assign entities, their interventions, the intervention you want to use. Maybe you also want to put climatic variables and all of that. So it's becoming more complex. So it's better you start small with a small model, and then you can build your complexity gradually. Over.
Thank you very much for those responses. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, okay. You mentioned prevalence data in your response to one of the questions being asked. Are you saying that if we have prevalence data, we should use it for fitting by carving out another compartment for prevalence? Yes, of course. If you have a prevalence data, you can use a prevalence data for fitting. Yes. To use fitting, yes, of course. What if you have data relating to death cases? Yes, you can use. So if you have data relating to death cases, you have to carve out what is death. Now, death death, is it death, natural death, or death due to the disease? If it is death due to the disease, so you can carve it out, you can carve that out from the eye compartment, because the eye compartment and the population is part of the population that can die due to the disease. Maybe you are saying disease-induced death. So you carve that out and create another platform. Yes, and create another, maybe I can call it the P, the T is equal to maybe I have used delta I. So that data will represent the disease-induced deaths. So you can do that. Why not? And in fact, most times it's also good to, because part of the thing you want to know in disease burden is mortality. Apart from prevalence and cases, you also want to know mortality. You know, when you tell people that, oh, 1 million people are dying, people want to rise to that and do something. Apart from saying that number of cases, you have large number of cases, but you said about 50,000 people have died in one day, and then people want to listen to you. So I think it's something to be done. If you have the data, it's a good thing to work on. Over.
All right, thank you very much, Prof, for all the beautiful responses. So, can we appreciate Prof by reacting, by giving an online clap?
Thank
you very
you.
much, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So, we'll be going for a 30-minute break, after which we are going to have another session. Please ensure you join as much as possible so that we can fill our attendance for the day. So, the last session will be on time series, the later part of what is expected. All right. So, thank you very much. See you in the next 30 minutes.